Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. Thank Allah, the one who has unlimited source of grace, mercy, and blessings. All matters we return to Him, and Allah is aware and knows everything that we all do. I bear witness there is no creator except Allah, the one and only with no partners, the Almighty and assured truth. I bear witness that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is the servant and messenger of Allah. My dear brothers and sisters of Islam, our talk today, inshallah, is about a matter among the most visible of our faith, the most beneficial and the most glorious of our worship to our Creator, the one and only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is humbleness in prayer, sincerity in prayer, modesty in prayer, and humility in prayer. So when we talk about khushu' and the translation in English, you can say modesty, humility, and sincerity as we stand before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We will get to know the meaning of humility, its benefit now and in the hereafter, and what can help us to reach it and attain it, and inshallah put it in practice. And how we can be humble, not just in prayer, but in all our worships, and to be a state of reflection of our faith, the Islam. Humility in prayer is for the heart and soul to stand before the truth, Allah, the Creator, seeking the Almighty in a state of admiration, sorrow, timidity, and apprehension. Standing in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a state of admiration to the Creator of the heavens and the earth, sorrow for what we do and what shortcoming, timidity, standing in front of the one and only, and apprehension of His might, of His capability over us. A state of bowing of the heart and the soul to the All-Knower, Allah, the All-Knower of the seen and the unseen, and to the utmost in perfection, Allah the Almighty. Honor Him. Admit to His nobility and glory. The Most Wise defined humility in prayer, saying, it is to be obedient, to be candid in what you say. You're standing before Allah, you have to be candid, sincere of everything that you say, comprehending what you say, conscious of the glory of the Almighty, with unshakable belief in Him, and all in conscious awareness and no distraction. It's not a show. You're standing before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cited humbleness and humility as the virtue of His believing servant. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in Surah Al-Mu'minun, verse 1 and 2, Allah said, successful indeed are the believers who are humble in their prayers. Allah prescribed patience and prescribed prayer to His servant to be an aid and an help against difficulty and facing trials. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said no one will be able to accomplish that, take the help from patience and prayer and utilizing to face all the trials of earth unless he's humble. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Al-Baqarah verse 45, Allah said, seek help in patience and prayer. It is indeed hard. It is indeed hard seeking help in prayer and in patience. It is indeed seeking hard. It is indeed hard except to those who are humble. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you the solution and also give you the guidance of how to actually utilize that solution, which is humility and humbleness. He which is humble is the one who distinguishes the fire of his evil desires, eliminate darkness from his heart, and replace it with the light of glorifying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is the one with restrained sinful desire and goodness in his heart and soul, bringing humility to all his senses. Bringing humility to all his senses, so his senses reflection of this state of sincerity, this state of humility, this state of humbleness. Humbleness is the heart and soul of prayer, and what is required of everyone, prophets or servants, or anyone in that matter, who stand before Allah and say Allahu Akbar, entering into a prayer, entering in a state of worship. In the book of Zuhd, Imam Ahmad, it was narrated on the authority of Abu Jadd that he said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed to his prophet Musa, may God be pleased with him. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, O Musa, if you supplicate to me, then put your tongue behind your heart. In another word, speak from your heart. Don't just rattle. Don't just repeat things. Put your tongue behind your heart. Speak from your heart. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, when you mention me, be humble and peaceful. And if you stand before me, stand in humility and meekness, and recall and put down your own shortcoming. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala telling the Prophet Musa to remember, to put down his own shortcoming, as they are the most worthy to remember. And when you call on me, call with a fearful heart and truthful tongue. This is the advice of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to his Prophet. How about us with all our shortcomings? My dear brothers and sisters, humility is the virtue that prayer are weighed with and valued with. And it was what the servant materialized of humility in his prayer is how his prayer would be valued. Whoever fulfilled in prayer what it deserved of humility, sincerity, and modesty to the all-knower, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives the reward of his prayer complete and in full. Abdullah ibn Ahmad, Imam al-Tahawi, al-Bazzar, and al-Bayhaqi narrated on the authority of Ka'b ibn Umar, Abu Yusuf, may God be pleased with him, that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, among you who perform his prayer complete, and among you who perform half, a third, and a fourth, or fifth, until he reach the 10th. The Prophet is saying, the man can be distracted in his prayer that he only attain 1/8 of its rewards, or only 1/10 of its reward, and so on, of the rewards, because of his shortcoming in performing its pillars, guidance, humility, and humbleness. The same meaning was narrated in another hadith on the authority of Ammar ibn Yasir, may God be pleased with him. Imam al-Awza'i narrated on the authority of Hassan al-Nadiyah that he said, a group of people perform the same prayer at the same time, and the distance between them will be like the distance between the heaven and the earth. The same group of people doing a collective prayer, same place, same time, and the distance between them will be like the distance between the heavens and the earth. And this means in prayer, a man would be humble before Allah in heart and soul, and the other is distracted and absent-minded. That is the difference of the heavens, between the heavens and the earth. Some of those who pray may never collect any reward of their prayer. A man might grow old and never fulfill one prayer perfectly in his life, as he did not fulfill its humility and its mandatory humbleness to his Lord, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Imam ibn Abi Dunya narrated on the authority of Yazid ibn Namran that Umar ibn Khattab, may God be pleased with him, the Khalif of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, stood to give a sermon and said, by Allah, and he is swearing, by Allah, a man would grow old in Islam and never meet Allah, who is a complete, perfect prayer. A man stood up to ask, and Umar pointed him to sit and continue explaining his opening statement, saying, by Allah, he never perfected its kneeling, he never perfected his prostration, and he never established its humility, requisites, or he know its status. or he realized the magnitude of standing before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. My dear brothers and sisters, it becomes clear that humility is the light, is the illumination that guides prayer ascending in the heavenly sky, reaching the throne of the kings of kings, and interceding on behalf of its owner. With humility, without humility, prayer will not have any light or wing to ascend in the heavenly sky, but fall in its owner, supplicating against him, to be ignored by the Almighty Allah as he ignored its fundamentals, ignored its parameters, ignored its status. Imam al-Tayalisi, al-Bazzar, and al-Shashi narrated on Nusrat al-Ibad in the Summit that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, if any one of you perform ablution, he did wudu, and did it perfectly, then he stood in prayer and perfectly completed its kneeling, prostration, and recitation, his prayer would say, may Allah protect you as you protect me. Then his prayer would be lifted to the heavenly sky as it possessed light and illumination. The doors of heavens are open before it until it reaches Allah the Almighty and intercede on behalf of its owner. Then the Prophet added the flip of the coin, the outside, the contrast. When you hear the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, always give you a guidance and give you the contrast. So if you don't understand the guidance, you will understand the contrast. No reason for confusion. Then the Prophet added, if you did not fulfill a perfect ablution, prostration, kneeling, and its recitation of the prayer will say, may Allah ignore you as you ignored me. Then it will be lifted to the heavenly sky, as its doors would be closed before it, and then folded as an old gown, an old rag, and with it slam the face of its owner. Big contrast, different outcome. My dear brothers and sisters, this is humility in prayer, and the vital need to point out this subject to be in our conscience, thanks to our Imam. Bring consciousness to our awareness of what we do in our worship, so inshallah we would collect the reward. Many among us let go of his humility and humbleness in prayer as prayer becomes an old habit. One would perform prayer and his heart and soul attached to earthly matter and its distraction which he cannot leave behind for a moment or two, preventing him from being there in prayer, in person, in heart and soul as he worshipped the Almighty Allah. This issue becomes predominant and widespread shortcoming among us as the companion of the Prophet predicted 14th century ago. It was narrated by Imam al-Hakim that on the authority of Huzaifa ibn al-Yaman, may God be pleased with him, that he said, the first of what you lose of your faith is humility, and the last of what you lose of your faith is prayer. You will find people praying everywhere, but humility is gone. Realization, conscious awareness of the might of Allah, the Creator, is gone. The first to go is this humility, and the last to go is prayer. Imam al-Tabarani also narrated on Nusrat al-Ibad, may God be pleased with him, that he said, the first to be lifted, the first thing to be taken away from this ummah is humility, until you don't see anyone humble anymore. This was predicted 14th century ago. We seek refuge of Allah. We seek help of Allah from such a state, and we ask Him to help us and support us in remembering Him, thanking Him, glorifying Him, and worship Him with a heart and a soul that is humble and full of humility. We will continue the subject of humility so we all can learn and know how we can ascend the rank of those who are truly humble, sincere, and modest in their prayer. Assalamu alaikum.